The Shang was a tribe of the Zi lineage steeped in ancient history, long residing along the lower reaches of the Yellow River, Huanghe. Legend holds that their progenitor was a woman named Jiandi, who while bathing in the wild witnessed a mysterious bird, a 玄鸟 lay an egg. She swallowed it and later bore a son, Qi, from whom the Shang tribe descended. In ancient times, tales of unwed women giving birth were not uncommon. The Zhou tribe's epic mirrors this. Their female ancestor Jiang Yuan trod upon a giant's footprint in the wilderness, conceived and gave birth to Qi, later known as Houji, founding the Zhou lineage. The Book of Songs, Hymns of Shang, the mysterious bird, describes Qi's origin. Heaven decreed the mysterious bird to descend and give birth to Shang. The Book of Songs, Hymns of Shang, Long Prosperity, states the Yusong tribe was on the rise, and the emperor ordained a son to birth Shang. The records of the grand historian Annals of Yin recounts the mother of Yin Qi, named Jiandi, was a daughter of the Yusong clan. While bathing with two others, she saw a mysterious bird drop its egg. Jiandi took it, swallowed it, and thus conceived and born Qi. Such mythic tales reveal that the Shang revered the 玄鸟 as their secret totem. The Yusong was the tribe of Jiandi, and the Yusong Fangjiang signifies the tribe's impending ascent. The 玄鸟, a metaphor for the unique conduit between the emperor Di and the Shang people, has been interpreted as a swallow or a phoenix. Among other possibilities, when Qi matured, he parted from his mother's Yusong tribe and founded the Shang clan. The name Shang stemmed from the Shangqiu, an ancient place tied to the deity of the eastern star Chen, the morning star. Legend tells of the semi-divine ruler in antiquity, Gao Xinshi, whose two sons correlated ceaselessly. In exasperation, he settled his younger son in Daxia, southern Shanxi, to oversee sacrifices to the evening star Shen, and his elder son in Shangqiu to conduct the rites for the dawn star Chen, thereafter also called the Shang star. At the tail ends, the gods departed the earth, and Qi took root in Shangqiu, his tribe earning the name Shang. The poet Du Fu wrote, "In life, we may never meet, drifting apart like Shen and Shang. The Shang star rises in the east at dawn, when Shen glows in the west at dusk, forever divided, east from west. Thus Shen and Shang became a poetic lament for irreparable separation." Nobles of the spring and autumn period claim that Song was the ancestral land of the Chen star tribe, as recorded into Zuo Zhuan, Duke Zhao, year 17th. Song is the domain of the great Chen. The capital of Song was Shangqiu, and its people were descendants of Shang, revealing that from before the destiny's rise to after its fall, Shangqiu remained bound to the Shang. From the era of Metis through the spring and autumn period to today, Shangqiu may be the only Chinese place name that has endured unchanged. The Shang coexisted with the Xia. The Xia founder, Yu, traced his lineage to Huangdi's grandson Zhuanxu, while the Shang progenitor Qi descended from Huangdi's grandson Diku. According to the records of the grand historian, the ancestors of the Xia, Shang, and Zhou, Yu, and Qi, and Houji all served in the courts of Yao and Shun. Thus, the Xia, Shang, and Zhou emerged as three parallel groups stemming from Huangdi. Before overthrowing the Xia, the Shang already possessed a vibrant history, the era of their ancestral lord and kings. The Book of Songs, Hymns of Shang, Long Prosperity, declares Xiang Tu was fierce and mighty, triumphant overseas, hinting at Shang victorious abroad. Qi aided Yu in taming floods, and later the Shang figure Ming served as a water official under the Xia. While the Xia ruled the middle and lower Yellow River, the Shang remained their vassals. The Shang's ancestral line began with Qi and ended with Cheng Tang, known in oracle poem as Tian, who toppled the Xia after 14 generations of leaders and 8 migrations. This implies a move occurred on average once every 2 generations. Ancient records note that in the early Xia era, they led a nomadic life on rafts, and the 6th Shang lord Ming drowned in water. Ming's son Wang Hai led his people with cattle herds across the Yellow River to the north, borrowing land from the Hebo and the Youyi tribes, possibly near the Yi River, to graze them. Wang Hai lived recklessly, indulging in debauchery with his brother in Youyi, perhaps seducing the local chieftains' women. As a result, he and his brother were slain, and their cattle seized by Youyi. Wang Hai's son Shang Jiawei, the 8th leader, sought aid from the Hebo tribe and attacked and destroyed Youyi and reclaimed the herd. After Shang Jiawei avenged his father, he did not settle in Youyi's land but continued roaming. For the Shang, Wang Hai's demise and Shang Jiawei's vengeance were matters of survival, a defining watershed in their history. In Yinxu oracle bone inscriptions, later Shang kings honored Wang Hai as a higher ancestor Wang Hai, often sacrificing to him alone, while Shang Jiawei was typically revered with subsequent named lords and kings, inscribed as from Shangjia or from Shangjia to a specific king. The Shang worshipped various deities, the most exalted being Di, alongside a bird deity cult. The Shang established their capital at Bo to dismantle the Xia's defenses. Prime Minister Yi Yin devised a plan to cease tribute payment to the Xia. Enraged, the Xia ruler Jie dispatched an army. The Xia and Shang clashed to Mingtiao, where Jie suffered a crushing defeat. Tang seized the advantage, pursued the foe, and extinguished the Xia. In the early Shang era, the Shang tribe had already ventured into Guanzhong. They ascended along the ancient paths on the southern banks of the Yellow River, traversing the ravines and dense forests of western Yu. Guanzhong served as the western frontier of the Shang dynasty, a vital source of human sacrifices of their rituals. Though Shang influence thrived here for centuries, they never fully claimed the entire basin. In the 17th year of Shang Tang, the Shang overthrew the Xia. Tang reigned 49 years before his death in 1546 BC. Wai Bing ascended the throne in 1546 BC under the regency of Yi Yin, only to pass away in 1543. The same year, Zhongren succeeded him, ruling until his death in 1539 BC. Curiously, Zhongren, persuaded by Chancellor Yi Yin, named his elder brother's son Taijia as heir instead of his own son. Legend claims Taijia fell into depravity, proving unfit to rule, promoting Yi Yin to exile him. Only after Taijia reformed was he recalled to reclaim the throne. This tale feels like a Confucian-tinged, innocent fable, yet in an age still steeped in ancient tribal customs, such an event is not impossible. Another account, however, suggests that in his 7th year of exile, Taijia escaped, slew Yi, and installed his son, mirroring later monarchs who eliminated powerful ministers yet had to placate and divide their entrenched factions. Taijia reigned for 12 years before his death, followed by several unremarkable rulers until the era of the 9 generations chaos. The 10th king, Zhongding, succeeded his father Taiwu, ruling for 13 years. In his first year, Zhongding moved to capital from Bo to Xiao, marking the Shang's first relocation. Meanwhile, the Yi tribes in the southeast grew powerful. In Zhongding's 6th year, the Lan Yi, a Yi faction, attacked the Shang. Zhongding repelled them with force. He ruled for 13 years before his death. Mei Shang saw royal turmoil ignite with Zhongding, ushering in dynastic decline, succession disputes, frequent relocations, and vassal rebellions. The unrest spanned 9 kings: Zhongding, Wairen, Hetanjia, Zuyi, Zuxin, Wojia, Zuding, Nangeng, and Yangjia, as Zhongding's brothers vied for the throne, sparking the 9 generations chaos in Shang succession. After Zhongding's death, his brother Wairen seized power, setting a precedent of might makes right, fueling over a century of strife. Wairen was succeeded by his brother Hetanjia, son of King Taiwu, and sibling to Zhongding and Wairen. Hetanjia waged campaigns against the southeast Lan tribe and Banfang. Hetanjia, reigning around 1381 to 1372 BC, was a central figure in the 9 generations chaos. He sought divine guidance, only to realize Xiao was no longer habitable. Floods submerged fields, and hostile tribes like the Yifang raided the borders. He resolved to relocate again, choosing Xiang, north of the Yellow River. Xiang's higher ground evaded floods and lay near the Shang heartland, easing control. Hetanjia's reign was brief. Upon his death, the throne passed to his son Zuyi. Hetanjia's title is distinctive. Shang royal posthumous names typically bear a heavenly star, Jia, Yi, Bing, Ding, etc., denoting succession or sacrificial order with a descriptive term like Ding for racial days, Wu for martial valor, Tai for reverence. In Hetanjia's name, He may denote a place like Yellow River or a symbol. Dan means honest or steadfast, a quality often ascribed to men or gods in oracle bones. Jia, the first heavenly stem, signifies primacy or honor. Compared to other kings, Shang Tang, Tianyi, simple and direct. Yi, paired with Tian, exalts the founding ruler. Taijia, Zuyi, Wuting, common terms like Tai, Zu, Wu, combined with stems concise and clear. Zhongding, Wairen, Zhong, and Wai denote sibling order, modest in tone. Hetanjia's uniqueness lies in the Hetan pairing, rare among Shang kings, who typically using single descriptors or familial terms. Hetan carries vivid imagery and nouns. He likely refers to the Yellow River, tied to his move to Xiang amid floods, a key driver of Shang relocations. This use of a geographic name is unparalleled among Shang kings, possibly commemorating his struggle or reliance on the river. Dan suggests resilience or loyalty, a moral hue. Shang names often tied to rituals. 和坦甲 might have been a sacrificial epithet, perhaps linked to frequent divinations beseeching the Yellow River's calm. The Bamboo Annals, compiled later, may have embellished his title, adding narrative depth beyond the oracle-born's terse stems. 和坦甲 stands apart among Shang kings. This duotome break from single-word norms may be a unique tribute to his perseverance amid turmoil. During war, 和坦甲 fell ill and died. His son Zu Yi succeeded him. Zu Yi was followed by his son Zu Xin. Then his brother Wo Jia's nephew Zu Xin's son Zu Ding took the throne next. Zu Ding's cousin Nan Geng, son of Wo Jia, followed. Then Nan Geng's death brought Zu Ding's son Yang Jia, brother of Pankeng, to power. The Nan generation's chaos will later be explored alongside Panlongcheng archaeology. Post-chaos, the Zhengzhou Shang city won, leaving Xiaoshuangqiao as the dynasty's near-sole thriving hub. Compared to Zhengzhou and Yanshi cities, Xiaoshuangqiao settlement was smaller, its cultural layer thinner, suggesting a brief Mei Shang span, perhaps under a century, marked by brutal human sacrifices and vast rammed earth platforms. Yet overall decline persisted. Only with the 19th king Pankeng relocating to Yin did Mei Shang 90-year-lived. The Shang dynasty won, and its vassals ceased to pay homage. During this period, succession was no longer limited to sons or brothers. Cousins and nephews also claimed the throne. This suggests that Di Xinyin discipline Bigan, Jiu Hou, and Xi Bochang aimed to avoid a recurrence of the 9 generations chaos. To reverse the decline, King Pankeng, upon ascending the throne, resolved to cross the Yellow River, shifting the capital from Yan south across the Great River to Bo, then northward to Beimeng, renaming it Yin, enacting reforms under the banner following Tang's governance, ushering in a political resurgence. Shang history pivots here. The Bamboo Annals states from Pankeng moved to Yin until Zhou's downfall. 273 years passed without further relocation. This carries dual significance. First, it signals growing stability in Rome. Second, it marks settled agriculture's dominance. 3,300 years ago, the Shang dynasty had stood for nearly 3 centuries. Until then, its ruling center lay south of the Yellow River. King Pankeng shifted it northward to Yin, necessitating a reliant defense perimeter, particularly against the wild north. Thus, waves of Shang tribes migrated from Yin to the northlands, establishing military settlements along the Taihang Mountains. Later dynasties' relocation often merely swapped one capital for another, with limited national impact. But in the ancient era of tribe unity, the capital was the ruler's clan's core. Beyond the scattered outposts, the entire ruling group, nation, and dynasty uprooted wholly. Not just the palace, but all Shang tribes, families, livestock, and slaves. Hence, the proposal to move sparked fierce debate, with most Shang reluctant to leave. Such was the quandary Pankeng faced. The Confucian classic book of documents preserved the speeches of Shang kings across generations. Though later edits and embellishments are evident, some chapters retain their original essence. The most credible and lengthy is Pankeng, vividly reflecting the Shang spirit and worldview. To them, capricious gods ruled the mortal realm, so Pankeng's speech to push the relocation brims with raw theocratic rhetoric, laced with intimidation and threats, far removed from Confucian ideals of ancient sages and shattering later notions of antiquity's simplicity. The Pankeng text is archaic and abstruse, a hallmark of Shang language. It records 3 of Pankeng's relocation speeches, the first before the move, the later 2 after settling the new capital. In the first, Pankeng summoned nobles to the palace courtyard for a lengthy address, insisting the relocation was non-negotiable. He began by invoking ancestral authority. The 4 kings founded this dynasty, yet now, amid the great calamity, they offer no aid, signaling we must depart. If you harbor discontent and defy my command, my 4 kings will rain punishment from the heavens, declaring, "Why dare you disobey our young grandson? Should they grow displeased, their celestial wrath will spare you no mercy." In Shang belief, deceased kings ascended to serve the emperor in heaven. guarding and blessing their descendants, the living Shang kings, while dispensing fortune or calamity. Likewise, nobles joined the celestial ranks upon death, wielding slight influence over the mortal world and favoring their own king. Earthly discord risked escalating into heavenly strife. To resolve this, Pankeng stressed the divine order. Celestial nobles must obey the four kings, not their progeny. Should living nobles resist, their ancestors would righteously disown them, he declared. Long ago, my four kings accepted your ancestors' allegiance, enabling you to thrive today as my nurtured flock. Harbor malice, and punishment, execution awaits. My four king will hold your ancestors accountable in heaven, who will abandon you to perish unaided. Pankeng pressed on. The sacrificial attendants have prepared offering, cowries and jade. Your ancestors, basking in my tribute alongside my four kings, will urge them swiftly punish my descendants. My four kings will then unleash misfortune upon you. Yet, before celestial punishment, Pankeng veiled earthly retribution. Using a vivid analogy, he warned the reluctant, you, stubborn and unyielding, fail to grasp my plight and seek to sway me, inviting your own ruin. It's as if we are crossing a river by boat. You refuse to row, sowing discord aboard. With ill intent, I will cast you into the waters. Soak all you wish, without reflection. What good is your anger? Finally, blending inducement with menace, Pankeng concluded his first speech. Forget not my words today. Forever cherish my great benevolence and Shang acts that savor you from me. Find fairness in your hearts, grasp my intent, and obey earnestly. Should any defy me, plotting mischief, I will slice off your noses and wipe out your king, leaving no heirs in the new capital. Go forth, your living souls. I now compel you to move, building you an enduring home. The ground relocation succeeded. The later two speeches delivered in the new capital softened in threats as dissent waned, leaning more on encouragement. Pankeng still cited the Emperor Di as his rationale. You ask, why upheave the masses with this move? It is not my view but the Emperor's. Repaying my high ancestors' virtue to revive our house, I can only piously obey. Bearing your myriad feats, settling forever in this new city. Pankeng highlighted the emperor's favored high ancestor. In later Shang oracle poems, high ancestor typically denotes Wang Hai, perhaps as Wang Hai first led the Shang north across the Yellow River. Pankeng's northward move earned his special blessing. The term De recurs in Pankeng's speeches, hinting at Shang moral framework. Yet there, De diverges from later meanings, not an abstract code, but a tangible benefit giving. A king's De bestowed favor on subjects. Its opposite was chastisement, sin, and punishment, both essential with sin. I strike the weak, with virtue I exalt the good. Only in the earthwestern Zhou, under Duke Zhou did Jingde evolve into a universal ethnic. To the Shang, the world was harsh, rife with violence, slaughter, plunder, and insecurity. They saw no clear good or evil in spirits, nor held such notions themselves. Thus, imagine no moral compass in the divine. Spirits, they believed, struck anyone with calamity with whim, fireman's words, or petty woes, all orchestrated by unseen hands, even afflicting kings. To win favor or ever disaster, Shang kings offered lavish sacrifices, yet success was uncertain. Oracle poems reveal incessant queries. Will the emperor Di send drought, harm the harvest, bring me woe, stir foes against me, afflict me with illness? Beyond the emperor and the myriad nature spirits, ancestral lords in heaven directly shaped the king's life. A toothache, tinnitus, or nightmare prompt speculation. Which foreking or foremother wrought this? Divination pinpoint the culprit, dictating rituals to appease their wrath. The emperor and the four kings carved not just human sacrifices, but living souls. Even the king's wives, King Wuting, cherished his consort Fu Hao, but her early death suffered query. Does the emperor claim Fu Hao, or Tang, or Da Jia, Zu Yi, or Fu Yi, Wuting's father Xiao Yi? The oracle's verdict, etched on bone, pointed not to this but to Shang Jiawei, the 8th pre-dynastic chieftain. From the Pankeng speeches, the king's authority stemmed from the celestial emperor. Yet he communed not directly but through ancestral lords meditating divine view. Addressing Pankeng were likely senior Shang nobles, yet he offered no difference, bluntly calling them folk. You myriad folk, My folk, multitude, your multitude. That multitude, the bond between king and these elite folk was pastoral. You collectively form my herded flock. Rife with threats of slaughter and divine wrath, scanned in warmth or grace, he dubbed them living wines, a stark reminder. Life and death rested in his hand. Even the loveliest noble lived by his favor. Over 2 centuries later, as Shang fell, Duke Zhou died, echoed Pankeng, rallying the Yin Shang nobles for another relocation. Yin's rise and ruin unfolded between these two species. Here lies the cult of ancestor worship in its starkest form, mirroring a strain in modern Chinese culture, sparring in love or tenderness, steeped in ruthless slaughter. From the era of Pankeng, the legends and facts of ancient Chinese history began to converge. The Shang dynasty endured for 5 to 6 centuries, with the Yin-Shang phase spanning roughly the later half. About 2.5 centuries, thus earning the scholarly designation Late Shang. Yet, modern archaeology reveals the reverse. He shifted from Xiaoshuangqiao in Zhengzhou to the Yinxu in Anyang. The Yin capital lay northwest of the ancient Yellow River, on the plains at the eastern foot of the Taihang Mountains. The Huan River flowing from the Taihang joins the ancient Yellow River to the east, with Yin straddling its banks. Oracle bones from Yinxu mention Yin written as Yi, a white collared robe, a phonetic loan. More commonly, it was Da Yi Shang. In oracle texts, Da and Tian interchange, also read as Tian Yi Shang, Heavenly City Shang. The Shang called their capital Shang, a name that followed them wherever they roamed. The Huanbei Shang city planned by Pankeng on the Huan River's north bank surpassed the early Shang cities of Zhengzhou and Yanshi in scale. Clearly, Pankeng sought to revive early Shang's golden age. Its history seemed poised to echo that cycle, but Wuting perceived its peril, abandoning the Huanbei Shang city. Used briefly, the city was forsaken as Shang clans pursued independent growth, preserving their small communal structures and tribal traditions. This safeguarded Shang religious culture. The corruption of Pan Longcheng and its betrayal of traditional faith by the Zhengzhou court sounded an alarm for Wuting. His policies stemmed from reflection on early Shang collapse. Even with chariots, a new tool of rule, Wuting kept the realm with a manageable, secure scope. Vast domains risked engulfing too many diverse tribes, diluting Shang numbers and inviting peril. Pan Longcheng will be explored in a later segment. Though Wuting struck outward, expanding borders, he advanced steadily, avoiding distant leaps like Pan Longcheng. Rolling over too many foreign tribes was unnecessary. Ample sacrificial offers for the gods sufficed. His worst conquest appeared with guard human sacrifice rites. Captives, viable as laboring slaves, was instead offered to appease the gods, sacrificing material gain to sustain Shang culture's vitality, the spiritual pillar securing divine favor. Eventually, the Shang built a new palace district south of the Huan River, where most clan settlements clustered, later famed as Yinxu. The first to shift there in the era of the 22nd king Wuting marked its genesis. Wuting, nephew of Pankeng, followed 2 interim kings, Pankeng's brothers Xiaoxing and Xiaoyi. Thus, the Huanbei Shang city likely spanned only Pankeng, Xiaoxing, and Xiaoyi. Under 50 years, its palace district bore heavy burn marks, suggesting a devastating fire. Wuting deemed the unfinished city ill-fated, abandoned it, erecting a new palace south of the Huan River. Wuting's Yin capital endured about 200 years with mirror renovations, but an unchanged core layout until Shang's end. His reign marked a zenith, celebrated in the Book of Songs with a mysterious bird, and martial Yin. Through relentless campaigns, he expanded Shang's dominance. A legendary ruler, Wuting's youth unfolded under his father Xiaoyi. In 6th year, he ordered Crown Prince Wuting to dwell by the river, studying under Ganpan. His ties with Ganpan, Fu Yue, Fu Hao, and generals Zhi and Wang Sheng wave a siege. 1254 BC, Xiaoyi died and Wuting ascended. Per Shang custom, he mourned 3 years, silent throughout. Tutored by Ganpan in youth, the minister and Xiaoyi, Wuting sought to revive Yin upon taking the throne, but lacked a worthy aid. One night, he dreamed the emperor Di granted him a sage named Yue, ordering officials to stretch and seek this man among the people with treasures. Wuting tasked a ballmaker with preparations. This archer found Yue at Fuyan, laboring on a wall, clad in a coarse cloth, his arms and shoulders hammer-like. Conversing, Wuting confirmed him as heaven sent, appointed Yue as chancellor. Wuting heeded his counsel day and night. overnight, learning statecraft. Fu Yue's The Charge to Shuo, 3 chapters guided Wu Ding's role. Fu Hao, his queen, emerged as a famed female commander. Oracle bones reveal Wu Ding had at least 3 wives, Bi Xin, Bi Wu, and Bi Gui. Bi as a posthumous honor. Bi Xin, known as Fu Hao, his first wife, appears over 200 times in his arrows divinations. When Wu Ding moved the palace from Huanbei to the Huan River south, he was roughly 20. His chief concern in divinations was the ability of Fu Hao to bear an heir. On a Ding Yu day, a diviner queries, will Fu Hao conceive? The scapula's cracks seemed ominous. The diviner hesitant, but Wu Ding read them. Auspicious, she will bear a child. From collection 13925, his choice of Fu Hao stemmed not from oracles but prayer resolve. Divination of formality. Her pregnancies prompted repeated queries. On a Jia Shen day, diviner Wei asked, will Fu Hao's birth be Jia? Wu Ding interpreted, a Ding day, birth yields a son. A Geng day, equally fortune. Yet 31 days later, on Jia Yin, she bore a daughter. Another time, a son died in miscarriage or labor, prompting Wu Ding to suspect Bi Ji, his grandmother and wife of 16th King Zu Ding, per records of the grand historian annals of Yin, whose 4 sons, Yang Jia, Pankeng, Xiaoxin, and Xiaoyi, ruled in turn. Ancestors, it seems, did not unconditionally bless the Shang. They could curse for myriad reasons, assuaged only by timely offering. Fu Hao aided Wu Ding greatly, hosting rites like meeting the Youlao. At Yang, she received the Duofu, divining called Fu Hao to meet the Duofu at Yang. Abroad, she gathered gifts for Wu Ding. Some oracle bones inscribed Fu Hao enters. Sacrificing to ancestors was a kingly duty Fu Hao shared, hosting rites for heaven, for bears and sacred spring, like those for Bi Gui and Duo Bi. Notably, she led Fa sacrifices, beheading victims with axes or halberds, a common human offering. Through surviving oracles made victim counts. In era of Wu Ding, wars flared often. Fu Hao commanding troops, oracles mark her as vanguard, mastering men from Pang, Jia Shen divination. After birthing a son, likely an heir, her stature soared. A true warrior queen, leading campaigns. She fought the Qiang, divining. Will Yue capture Qiang, call Fu Hao to seize them. She subdued the Tu Fang and Bafang west of Yin in modern Shanxi and Shanxi, and the Shifang, eastern Yi in modern Shandong. The other wife of Wu Ding, Fu Jing, younger than Fu Hao, also led rites and wars, plus managed royal farms, overseeing harvest and praying for bounty. Tasks Fu Hao really touched. Fu Hao died of illness, Wu Ding sacrificing fervently to ancestors for her health, as Fu Jing bore a child aimed Fu Hao's decline. Divinations of Wu Ding merged their fates on the shell. Wu Ding, a towering figure in Shang history, helmed the peak of Yin Shang, his Wu Ding revival echoing through time, noted in the Bible annals. The Book of Songs sings, the realm spans 1,000 miles, where the people dwell, marking the domain unto the 4 seas. Wu Ding shaped Yin's layout and later Shang's borders. Oracle bones all made his reign's length, but the book of documents, no idleness, no Duke Zhou telling Yin Shang survivors past Zhou founding. Gaozong Wu Ding ruled 59 years. His age at ascension is unknown. Even at 10, he neared 70. From Pankeng to Zhou Wang, 12 kings spanned over 200 years. Reign of Wu Ding claiming nearly a quarter. His stories all made his wives. Without Yin Xu bones and tombs, Fu Hao and Fu Jing would be lost. Yet, son of Fu Hao, Xiaoji appears in Xi Jin's Huangfu Mi's Annals of Emperors of Kings. At first, Gaozong had a virtuous son, Xiaoji, whose mother died early. Gaozong, swayed by later wife, exiled him to death, mourned by all. Of Prince Xiaoji, earlier records are silent, but unearthed bones confirm him. In divinations of sons of Wu Ding, Zu Geng and Zu Jia, they sacrificed to Xiongji by Zu Jia's son Keng Ding. This Xiongji became Xiao Wang Fuji by the last king Di Yi and Di Xin. Later Shang kings thus honored his princely status and sacrificial rite. Wu Ding's longevity outlasted most wives and sons. Whether Xiaoji died in exile is improbable, but timing suggests he was son of Fu Hao. The Xiao in Xiaoji lacks in oracle bones, not just for him but all Shang kings perhaps aided later in Qin Han times. In day of Wuting, the Shang rise up conquest in Guanzhong. Invader pressed west, clashing fiercely with native tribes in lands untouched by prior expansions. There dwelt a Qiang tribe called Zhou, an oracle-born race. Wuting also couriered witch forces to Kou Zhou. Kou also read Pu, meaning attack, across 9 divinations, mobilizing the Duozizhu Jimao divination. Yun, divining, ordered the Duozizhu to follow Quanhou to Kou Zhou, aiding the king's cause. Quanhou, Yinhou, Chonghou Hu, and the eligible names joined, while the mighty multiple Zi clan. The royal Shang clans are the Qiangzhou tribe. Wuting fought the first from Ji surname Zhou of Zhou Wenwang. Through bloody ties he linked them. After crushing the Jiangzhou, Shang seized the Zhouyuan south of Qishan and north of the Wei River. Wuting in fact a noble there, dubbed Zhouhou in oracle texts a Shang-founded fief. Generations later, Shang titled Zhou Wenwang Zhou Fangbo. Bo marked the alien's chiefs. Shang reserved Hou for its own. After death of Wuting, Sang, Zugeng, and Zujia ruled as westward conquest won. The records of the grand historian Annals of Yin notes Zujia fell to debauchery and Yin declined anew, abandoning the Zhouhou state. Western Qiang natives clashed with Shang evermore, toppling its nascent Guanzhong western outposts. Shang withdrew thence, leaving desolation. Even bronze grew scarce. Yet eastern Guanzhong held firm, where Wuting in fact Chonghou Hu, famed in records of the Guan history, and the investiture of the gods, founding Chongguo, a bulwark of westward expansion, toppling the Qiangzhou and establishing a Shangzhou state. After death of Wuting, Shang fief of Zhouyuan faltered. Under Zugeng and Zujia, Shang won. Its Zhouhou beset by natives, neighboring lords were likely summoned to aid, to no avail, as tribal forces reclaimed western Guanzhong. By the end of Yinxu, Chongguo thrived, its bronze industry vast, bolstered by subduing a northern hill tribe. The Ji surname Zhou of Zhou Wenwang's grandfather's generation settled in the contested Zhouyuan. This sparked a pivotal turn in ancient Chinese civilization. The treatment of foreign tribes by Shang was marked by profound cruelty. Tribesmen of Qiang, captured in great numbers, were transported to Yindu for sacrificial rites. Their fate so dire that many chose death in battle or escaping into the wilderness over submission to the rule of the Shang. By martial strength alone, the vast expanse of Guanzhong could not be fully subdued. The unrest generated a peculiar attraction of force-joining distant tribes from the far northwest, beyond Longshan and Liupanshan, to advance gradually toward Guanzhong. Perhaps the luster of Shang bronze enticed them, or they sought to claim lands rendered desolate by the ravages of war. In the final years of Wuting and the early reign of Zugeng, the wars against the Gongfang flared with intense ferocity. In the first year of the campaign, Wuting, the king of Shang, consulted oracle bones to plan assaults on 3 Fang states, Bafang, Xiawei, and Ren. Meanwhile, 2 other Fang states, Tufang and Gongfang, allied to launch attacks on several western allies of Shang, ensnaring at least 4 tribes, Hun, Ai, Dianfeng, and Cha. In the conflict in the first half of the following year, divinations planned a counter-offensive against the incursions of Tufang. Though perhaps the weaker adversary, the threat posed by Tufang was likely more immediate. No documentary evidence confirms whether these counter-strikes were executed or yielded results. Yet, therefore, Tufang vanished from oracle-born inscriptions, possibly indicating a shift to neutrality. Before Shang could celebrate, Gongfang seized 2 of its most vital western allies, Yue and Zhi, with Gongfang emerging as the primary adversary of Shang in the ensuing years. The loss of these allies, particularly Zhi, appears to have shaken the royal house of Shang. The leader of Zhi, one of the principal military commanders of Shang at the time, likely perished in its campaign, as his name ceased to appear in subsequent divinations. 2 years later, when Shang planned to engage Gongfang once more, the combination of its military had undergone a complete transformation, and even the nature of the army had changed. No longer were figures such as Zhi or Wang Sheng mentioned, nor did oracle bones record alliance with others, donated by the term Bi, nor were there accounts of temporary levies by the king of Shang, practice that had been primary military strategies in the early stage of the war. Instead, it appears that Wuting himself led led a campaign, as suggested by the single oracle in train. Under his command, a new general led forces referred to in two oracle inscriptions as 歌人. If this term is correctly interpreted, it may indicate that Shang was compelled to deploy every available warrior into battle. By the winter of that year, the forces of Shang were prepared to confront Gongfang. Several oracle inscriptions from the 13th month and the first month of the subsequent year planned an assault to commence the day following each divination. The final confrontation loomed imminent, evidently occurring in the second month of the certain year, culminating in a victory of Shang. Likewise, the army of Shang achieved a great triumph at Nie. Nie served as the final western defensive line protecting the capital region of Shang. Existing records indicate that Shang ultimately repelled Gongfang at this time, demonstrating the capacity to defend its capital. However, this did not necessarily signify the ability to reclaim the western territories previously lost. Indeed, many former western allies of Wuting appeared as adversaries in later oracle poems, such as the aforementioned Yue, providing compelling evidence that even after neutralizing the threat of Gongfang, Shang never restored its hegemony over this region. Henceforth, Shang largely became a regional power. Its connections with areas west of Taihang Mountain effectively severed. From a long-term perspective, the wars with Gongfang not only foreshadowed, but significantly determined the eventual destruction of Shang by Zhou in the west. For over a century following the reign of Wuting, Shang entered a period of prolonged decline, likely involving the weakening or loss of control over some ethnic groups in its peripheral regions. Within the capital of Shang, the practices of venerating royal ancestors and using oracle poems to guide royal policy persisted unchanged. The racial reforms during the reign of Zujia, termed by some scholars a new school of Shang governance, included stricter ancestral worship activities tied to the liturgical calendar. Previously, oracle poems were interpreted to provide affirmative or negative responses to paired questions inscribed upon them regarding human actions. Under Zujia and his successor Gengding, negative responses were suppressed, deemed unsuitable for ancestral confirmation, and the range of topics submitted to oracle poems narrowed. Following the death of King Gengding, Wu Yi ascended the throne, with Shang still residing in Yingdu. By the time of Wu Yi, the Zhou tribe led by Gugong Danfu had emerged. Wu Yi scorned divine authority, crafting a puppet dubbed Tianshen, heavenly god, to gamble against, with proxies moving its pieces. When Tianshen lost, Wu Yi mocked it with punishments. He ordered a lacquer sack filled with blood, hung aloft, and shoot it with a full drawn bow, proclaiming, "I shoot the heavens." During his reign, Zhou leader Gugong Danfu led his clan from Bing to Qishan, their strength swelling. Wu Yi granted Qi to Zhou. In his 34th year, Ji Li of Zhou paid homage. Wu Yi bestowed land, jade, and horses. The next year, Ji Li crushed Guifang, captured 20 Di kings. One day, hunting between the Yellow River and the Wei River, found the road. Wu Yi was struck dead by lightning. His son Wending ascended. To speak plainly, conduct of Wu Yi is so dramatic as to cast a doubt on its veracity. Indeed, it is likely a fabrication. For a king to brazenly forsake the traditions of his forebears with such flagrant and vehement acts of sacrilege defies belief in its sheer absurdity. I know some might argue this was a political performance necessary to reform. Reform? What in the world was he reforming, considering how few generations Shang endured after Wu Yi's so-called innovations? Secretly had his reign passed when the Di Yi Guimei affair unfolded, his sister's marriage to Zhou, and Shang's martial prowess crumbled almost overnight. If these accounts hold truth, then I can only say Wu Yi, the fool, wrought havoc with his reckless deeds. The Shang clan's unity fractured, its faith and tradition shattered, its entire world will collapse in ruin. And no matter the angle, blasphemy against the god remains an unforgivable sin. The prevailing view holds that, at least in the late Yinxu period, Shang directly controlled a relatively small area of the northern Yellow River Plain, with its peripheral regions termed the Sifang, four directions, a concept noted by scholar Sarah Allen as applicable to the supernatural cosmological model of Shang, partially or wholly beyond by its control, inhabited by actual or potential hostile groups. Under the successors of Wuting, the influence of Shang began to disintegrate. A weakening center was surrounded by increasingly organized and advancing ethnic groups, which ultimately abandoned loyalty to the king of Shang. For decades or centuries, these peripheral groups had offered incalculable tribute in form of loyal crops, wild and domesticated animals, slaves, and various local products as a price for their allegiance. Their rulers began to question whether loyalty to Shang was worth the cost. By approximately 1100 BC, the Zhou, residing west in the basin of Weishui, organized a coalition of former allies of Shang, gradually redirecting tribute to themselves. These steps marked the initial phase of a plan to overthrow Shang. For instance, the later legend of Di Yi Guimei of Fire, wherein Di Yi married his younger sister to the state of Zhou, was an unprecedented act. This, in a sense, signaled that Shang's strength had waned to the point where it teetered on the brink of being outmatched, though it retained enough men to avoid complete defeat. Subsequent events such as the mutual hostage exchange between Zhou and Zheng, or Tang Taizong's betrothal of Princess Wencheng, bore a similar character. The Xianbei military aristocracy, after over a century of Sinicization, saw its martial prowess decline to a critical juncture where it could no longer prevail. In the records of Shang, reverence was accorded to the supreme deity, Di, or Shangdi, the paramount god who governed heaven and earth, holding ultimate authority over the ancestors of Shang, wielding supreme power, influencing success or failure, and capable of bestowing calamities or rewards. They commanded the sky, earth, sun, moon, wind, rain, clouds, and all worldly phenomena, such as determining rainfall. However, after Wuting, the final kings of Shang, ceased to offer sacrifices to Shangdi to pay for rain or other needs, the virtual disappearance of Shangdi from records suggests a growing confidence among the kings of Shang in relying on their ancestors, or a gradual realization of the indestructible nature of his will, rendering sacrificial pleas futile. The title Di was conferred upon ancestors. Wuting, for instance, was called Diding, indicating an increased veneration of ancestors and an elevation of royal authority. Tombs of the royal family and nobility became a significant undertaking of the Bronze Age, which continuous investment of wealth, labor, implements, weapons, bronze, ceramics, jade, ornaments, food, fine wines, animals, and human sacrifices. The volume of wealth offered in later sacrifices grew even greater, underscoring the exalted status of the living who provided these offerings, who believed such acts would secure the protection of ancestors. During the era of Shang, the concept of Zhongshang emerged, denoting the core region of Shang, with external territories divided into Sifang, east, west, south, and north, where prayers to the deities of the four directions sought abundant harvest. It is plausible that the later concepts of Zhongtu, middle land, Zhongyuan, central plains, and Siyi, east Yi, west Rong, south Man, and north Di, originated from this framework. The royal clan constituted the heart of the dynasty. Adult princes, besides leading their respective branches, served the royal clan, gaining recognition from their father, the king, through hunts and regional tours. The participating in ancestral sacrifices, for example, Wuting entrusted numerous tasks to Zihua, divining his illnesses and hunting activities, and reporting his actions to ancestors. The territory of Zihua offered tribute in the form of people, turtle shells, and the intelligence of the king of Shang. Workshops of the royal court crafted an array of bronze weapons, including spears, arrowheads, lances, helmets, armor, and chariots. The armies of Wuting, led by himself, his allies, or generals such as Zhi and Wang Sheng, were mobilized through conscription and temporary with taxes. As seen in campaign against Tufang, Gongfang, and Yufang, soldiers were typically raised and served within lineage-based organizations that also functioned as military units. In each military engagement, the army of Shang generally mastered 3,000 to 5,000 soldiers, with no instance recording a force of 10,000. In the late period of Shang, signs of bureaucratization emerged. The meticulous and orderly inscriptions, the storage of records, the existence of an archival system, and habitual record-keeping practices subtly suggested a degree of bureaucratic organization. Moreover, Dian, and Ce, along with written records, played significant roles in the dynasty of Shang. The Qiu region of late Shang retained considerable security against external invasions. Oracle inscriptions from this period record no instances of foreign enemies launching attacks from their territories against Shang, nor do they mention losses or prayers for divine protection to secure victory in war. This may reflect a change in divinatory practice rather than actual events, but it portrays Shang as the aggressor rather than the victim. During the era of Wuting, Shang initiated wars against a series of Fang states, including Tufang and Gongfang. While conflicts with the Qiangfang persisted, the Shang frequently achieved victories west of Taihang Mountain. In the subsequent era of Zugeng, the success rate of the army of Shang against the Fang states declined, and its western allies began to disintegrate. In later reigns, as the influence of Gongfang grew in the northwest, the territorial reach of Shang continued to contract. The state of Zhou, originally one of the beleaguered allies of Shang alongside other western coalitions, either fall or abruptly vanished from oracle inscriptions. Later, Zhou reappeared under the designation Zhoufang, indicating that Zhou had become the adversary of Shang. In the final period, the kings of Shang no longer relied on allied leaders or generals to command their armies. They assumed the roles of priests and primary military leader themselves. Compared to their forebears, they grew more powerful yet increasingly solitary. The oracle inscriptions concerning personnel under Di Yi and Di Xin diminished strikingly. Shang retained their ability to secure the region near its homeland, but this secure area shrank dramatically. The hunting activities of the king rarely extended beyond the 15 to 20 kilometers from the homeland, with only occasional expeditions venturing further. The most renowned campaign of late Shang was the expedition against Renfang in the east, demonstrating that the final king retained the capacity to launch sudden long-distance campaigns when necessary. Estimates suggest that the last king of Shang spent 106 days on his outward expedition and 99 days returning, indicating he was not required to remain stationed in the capital to fulfill his duties. Indeed, in the final years of Shang, the king served as both the chief diviner and high priest, with all divinatory and priestly function under his authority. Through his journeys, the presence of the king intermittently brought the full authority of the dynasty to various settlements functioning as nodes of an early state. The later kings may have perfected the art of governance in Shang, as they conducted lavish burials for their predecessors, maintained complex cycles of ancestral worship, and adhered to fixed schedules for hunting. Yet, they operated within a smaller sphere, now surrounded by former vassals and allies. The last Shang king, Zhou, looms infamous in Chinese rule, a dynasty's final ruler, epitomist, drunken, tyrannical, cruel, debauched, his vices dooming him and Shang. Among atrocities, he allegedly slit a pregnant woman's womb to view the fetus and carved open a sage's chest to compare saintly and common hearts. At wild picnics, he had nude women bathing in the milk pool, meat hung on the trees. His lust led him to neglect the yearly sacrifices to the high god. In 1059 BC, heaven signaled Zhou Wang, a red-bird herald, 5 planets alignment, Shang moral sun. Some troops refused to fight. Yet, Di Xin may never have existed. He could entirely be a functional figure propagated by Zhou to justify their conquest and the establishment of a new dynasty by creating and toppling a strawman. If he did exist, he is unique among the kings of Yinxu, Shang, as no oracle bones or bonzes bear his name. Furthermore, investigations of Muye, the site of the decisive battle in Zhou's conquest of Shang, have uncovered no traces of conflict. Given Muye's location in the Yellow River's alluvial plain, any artifacts from such a battle were likely washed away or buried beneath its silt. And even if Di Xin was a historical figure, it is almost certain that his misdeeds were greatly exaggerated by the propagandists of Zhou. Regardless, Shang had reached its end, and by the mid-11th century BC, it undoubtedly ceased to exist.